Welcome back to True Echo, where powerful true-to-life stories reveal hidden heroes, expose forgotten wrongs, and remind us that hope can rise even from heartbreak. Today's story is one you'll never forget, a story of loyalty, loss, and an incredible twist that shocked an entire town and captured hearts across the country. Stay with us. A heavy veil of gray clouds hung low over Hartwell Grove Cemetery, as if the sky itself mourned. Winter's bite gnawed through every coat and scarf, and a harsh wind whipped across the sparse brown grass. Near the foot of an ancient, twisted willow tree, a small crowd gathered, their faces drawn and pale. In the center stood a small white coffin, heartbreakingly tiny against the somber landscape. Adam Mitchell stood beside the casket, unmoving. At 43, Adam had already borne more grief than most men twice his age. Threads of silver ran through his dark hair, and deep lines cut across his face. His broad shoulders seemed to sag under an invisible weight as he stared blankly at the coffin holding the body of his 7-year-old daughter, Lucy. Only 3 days earlier, the doctors at Pine Harbor Medical Center had pronounced Lucy dead after a catastrophic seizure, the final blow in a life spent battling severe epilepsy. Friends and townsfolk from Pine Harbor whispered solemn condolences around him, but Adam barely heard. Their words were like snowflakes against the inferno of pain inside him. Somewhere to his right, Pastor Grace Shelby opened her weathered Bible, her voice trembling as she began to recite scripture meant to offer comfort. Then, cutting through the mournful quiet like a blade, came the thunderous roar of a motorcycle engine. Heads turned in shock as a black Harley screeched to a stop outside the cemetery gates. A man climbed off, clad in worn leather and tattoos, removing his helmet to reveal a neatly trimmed beard and a face hardened by time and regret. His name was Zane Morgan, though few in Pine Harbor knew him anymore. He hadn't come for spectacle. He had come for penance. Before anyone could react, a second disturbance erupted. A large German shepherd, sleek and powerful, broke free from somewhere unseen, sprinting full tilt across the cemetery. Weaving between tombstones, the dog made straight for the coffin. A sheriff's deputy shouted, trying to intercept the animal. "Catch him. He'll knock the coffin over." But no one could catch the blur of black and tan. Within seconds, the German shepherd launched himself onto the tiny white casket, planting his body firmly atop it, growling low in his throat as if daring anyone to approach. Adam staggered back, blinking in disbelief. He knew that dog. His name was Aaron, assigned recently to the local K9 unit but familiar to Adam for another, more personal reason. Months ago, Lucy had bonded with Aaron at a children's therapy center for kids battling chronic illnesses. The bond had been immediate, almost uncanny. But how was he here now? The deputy lunged, trying to pull Aaron off the coffin, but the dog snarled, a deep, primal sound of pure protection. The funeral party gasped, some stepping back in fear, others frozen in confusion. Adam's throat closed in rage and grief. "Get him off," he rasped, his voice breaking. But Zane Morgan, standing silently at the cemetery's edge, didn't move. His combat-honed instincts told him something else was happening. He had seen dogs behave like this before, on battlefields far away where life and death flickered like candle flames in the dust. "Let the dog be," Zane called out, stepping forward. A ripple of murmurs spread through the mourners. Was this biker crazy? Was he disrespecting the dead? Adam turned toward him, raw fury in his eyes. "You think this is normal? Letting a dog desecrate my daughter's funeral?" Zane's voice was steady, almost too calm. "He's alerting. I've seen it before. Sometimes they can still sense life." The words fell into the winter air like stones into still water. "What?" Adam's chest tightened painfully. No, it wasn't possible. Lucy was gone. The doctors had said so. He'd signed the papers himself. The funeral director approached, pale as ash. "Mr. Mitchell. I don't know what to do." The German shepherd began to whine, a low, urgent sound that rose and fell in a heartbreaking rhythm. Adam's legs trembled beneath him. A memory flashed in his mind. Lucy giggling as Aaron pawed her lap during therapy sessions, nuzzling her whenever she started to tremble before a seizure. Aaron had sensed things no human ever could. Adam's hands balled into fists. He wanted to scream at the universe for playing such a cruel trick. But as he stared at Aaron's shaking form, so desperate, so certain, something inside him cracked open. If there's even a 1 in a million chance," Adam whispered hoarsely, "we have to check." The deputy hesitated. "Sir, this is highly irregular." "Open it," Adam said louder now. His voice broke mid-command, but the meaning was clear. "Open the coffin." For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then, grim-faced, the deputy and another man from the funeral home knelt by the casket's fasteners. They worked quickly but carefully, as if terrified of what they might find. Adam gripped the edge of the coffin with trembling hands. His heart hammered against his ribs as the lid lifted, and the world seemed to tilt sideways. There inside lay Lucy. So small. So still. Dressed in the pink dress she had begged for one spring day at the outlet mall. A lock of her blonde hair curled across her forehead. Adam pressed his fingers to her wrist. Nothing. And then, a flutter. A faint, impossibly light pulse against his fingertips. He gasped, falling to his knees. "She's alive," he cried out in a strangled voice. "She's alive." The cemetery exploded into chaos. Someone screamed. Others sobbed openly. One man dropped to his knees, crossing himself over and over. Zane moved through the stunned crowd like a ghost, reaching Adam's side and placing a steadying hand on his shoulder. "Get an ambulance," Adam shouted. "Now." The deputy, face gone white, fumbled for his radio. The pastor dropped her Bible onto the wet grass, her mouth open in silent prayer. Aaron let out a high-pitched bark, almost a howl of triumph, and remained at Lucy's side, standing guard like a sentinel from some ancient, forgotten time. Within minutes, sirens howled in the distance, drawing closer. And as Adam cradled Lucy's tiny hand, he realized something even more staggering than her faint heartbeat. They had almost buried his daughter alive. And it was only because of one loyal dog, and the stranger who dared to believe him, that she had been saved. The ambulance tore through the iron cemetery gates, tires skidding across the frost-laced gravel as paramedics leapt from the vehicle. They rushed toward the small casket, unsure what kind of emergency could have arisen at a funeral. One glance at Adam's tear-streaked face, and then at the tiny pale girl cradled in his arms, was enough to jolt them into motion. "She's breathing barely," Adam choked out. "You have to help her." The paramedics worked swiftly, their movements mechanical yet urgent. One of them, a woman named Sierra, checked Lucy's vitals while the other prepared an oxygen mask. Adam hovered helplessly as they laid Lucy on a stretcher, the oxygen hissing as they tried to stabilize her. Zane placed a steadying hand on Adam's back. "They've got her," he said quietly, as if willing Adam to stay upright for just a few more minutes. Aaron, refusing to be left behind, attempted to leap onto the ambulance as they loaded Lucy in. Sierra paused, looking between the desperate dog and Adam. "Is he hers?" she asked. Adam nodded, too choked up to speak. "Then he rides with her." Nobody objected. No one dared. Zane grabbed Adam's arm. "Go. I'll follow." Adam clambered into the ambulance, never once letting go of Lucy's tiny hand. Aaron settled on the floor next to the stretcher, his head low but his eyes wide and alert. The ambulance sped away from the cemetery, sirens screaming into the gray winter morning. Inside, Adam watched helplessly as monitors beeped around Lucy's small, still form. A paramedic pressed an 4-needle into Lucy's arm while another adjusted the oxygen flow. "Come on, baby," Adam whispered, brushing a wisp of hair from her forehead. "Stay with me." The cold metal walls of the ambulance seemed to close in around him. In a daze, he thought about how close they had come to putting her in the ground forever. Had Aaron not intervened, had Zane not spoken up? Adam shuddered at the thought. By the time they arrived at Pine Harbor Medical Center, a trauma team was already assembled in the ER bay, alerted by the paramedics' frantic radio call. They whisked Lucy away as Adam stumbled after them, his mind spinning. Everything felt surreal, like a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Dr. Rowan, the same physician who had signed Lucy's death certificate, appeared at the entrance of the ER, drawn by the commotion. His face blanched when he recognized Adam, the casket, the child he had pronounced dead. "Mr. Mitchell," Rowan began, but Adam cut him off with a glare so fierce it stopped him mid-sentence. "Save her," Adam growled, every word a dagger. "Or don't ever come near me again." The staff pushed Lucy through double doors marked Pediatric ICU. Aaron tried to follow, whining, but a nurse stopped him gently. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," she said, kneeling to scratch behind his ears. "You can't go past here." Adam crouched down, pulling Aaron into a rough hug. "You did good, boy. You did real good." The German shepherd leaned into him, whining low in his throat, refusing to break eye contact with the closed doors that separated him from Lucy. Hours passed like molasses. Adam sat in the waiting room, head in his hands, while Aaron curled up at his feet. Zane eventually arrived, breathless from chasing the ambulance on his bike. He dropped into the chair beside Adam, casting a wary glance around the sterile room. "I'm not much for hospitals," Zane muttered. Neither am I, Adam said hollowly. They sat in silence for a long time, two broken men bound by a child who somehow refused to give up. The minutes dragged into hours. Nurses came and went, offering updates in soft, professional tones. Lucy was alive but barely. Brain activity was present but sluggish. She was breathing but only with the help of machines. Adam refused to leave the waiting room. So did Aaron. And so did Zane, whose presence was a silent but steady comfort. Late that evening, Dr. Fiona's son, a new face among the hospital staff, approached them with Lucy's latest test results. Her kind eyes softened when she saw Adam clutching Lucy's favorite stuffed rabbit, a toy he had rescued from the casket before leaving the cemetery. "Mr. Mitchell," Dr. Sun began, pulling up a chair. "Your daughter is in critical condition. She's in what we call a postictal state, but it's unusually prolonged, likely because of the cataleptic event she experienced." Adam blinked at her, uncomprehending. "Is she brain dead?" he managed. "No," Dr. Sun said firmly. "There's activity. Weak but present. She's fighting. We're keeping her stable for now. We have hope." Adam sagged in his chair, the weight of relief so sudden he thought he might pass out. Dr. Sun reached down to pet Aaron, who had risen at the mention of Lucy's name. "And if it helps any," she added with a small smile, "we're making an exception to hospital policy. Aaron can stay close by. It seems he's quite an important part of her care." Adam could have kissed her. "Thank you," he croaked. Dr. Sun nodded and rose to leave, but not before tossing a curious glance at Zane. "Your family too?" Zane hesitated. "Half-uncle," he said. "Long story." Dr. Sun just smiled. "It's the holidays. We'll make room for miracles." When she disappeared down the hall, Adam turned to Zane, exhaustion written all over his face. "You saved her," he said, voice hoarse. "You and that dog." Zane shook his head. "No. Lucy saved herself. We just listened when others didn't." Aaron rested his head on Adam's foot, letting out a deep sigh. Outside the hospital window, a few flakes of snow drifted from the sky, swirling lazily under the glow of the parking lot lights. Inside, hope flickered, a tiny, stubborn light refusing to be snuffed out. Adam clutched the stuffed rabbit tighter. He wasn't giving up. Not now. Not ever. Lucy had a heartbeat. And as long as it kept beating, however faint, he would be there, fighting for her with everything he had. The next few days unfolded like a dream Adam couldn't wake from. A relentless cycle of hope, fear, exhaustion, and desperate prayer. Lucy remained in a fragile state, her small body dwarfed by machines and tubes, but the hospital staff clung to one undeniable truth: she was alive. Outside the ICU room, Zane settled into an unofficial routine. When he wasn't pacing the hallways or battling the rising tide of reporters sniffing around Pine Harbor, he was making phone calls, speaking with veterans groups, biker friends, and anyone who might help protect Lucy's privacy and support Adam through the gathering storm. Meanwhile, Aaron never once left Lucy's side. Hospital policy be damned, the staff had quickly realized that the German Shepherd was more than a pet. He was her guardian, her silent advocate. More than once, Aaron would whimper or paw gently at the bed moments before Lucy's monitors detected a change in her vitals, prompting nurses to act faster than the machines alone would have allowed. Word spread like wildfire through town. Within days, Pine Harbor was no longer a sleepy coastal village. News vans lined the streets, satellites pointed skyward, journalists eager to report on the girl who rose from the grave, and the hero dog who knew the truth. Adam hated it. Every day brought a new onslaught of interview requests and flashing cameras outside the hospital. He refused them all, his focus laser-sharp on Lucy. But not everyone respected his wishes. One afternoon, as Adam sat reading aloud from Lucy's favorite book, her hand resting limp but warm in his, a commotion erupted outside the ICU wing. Adam could hear raised voices, the screech of sneakers on linoleum. Zane burst through the door moments later, breathless and furious. "Reporters tried to sneak in dressed as clergy," he spat. "Security's beefing up, but they're stretched thin. Some folks from the Iron Talons are rolling into town tonight. They're gonna help keep the vultures back." Adam nodded, exhausted gratitude flooding through him. He didn't have the energy to fight this battle alone. Every second stolen from Lucy's side felt like a betrayal. "They're organizing a ride too," Zane added after a moment, his voice softening. "For Lucy. To raise money for her care." Adam swallowed hard, throat tight. "Tell them, thank you." That night, the Iron Talons roared into Pine Harbor. A thunderous procession of motorcycles lined Main Street, chrome glinting under the street lamps, engines rumbling like distant thunder. They stationed themselves in shifts outside St. Florian's Hospital, a living barrier between the Mitchell family and the curious, the cruel and the opportunistic. Inside the ICU, life settled into a strange, fragile rhythm. Lucy's vitals stabilized, her brain activity fluctuating but holding steady. Tiny signs of responsiveness flickered. A twitch of her fingers, a flicker behind her closed eyelids. Not enough to declare her awake but enough to keep Adam and everyone else hoping. Aaron remained vigilant. One evening as Adam dozed in a chair, Aaron's low whine jolted him awake. The dog stood tense, ears pricked toward Lucy's bed. Adam rubbed the sleep from his eyes, heart racing. "What's wrong, boy?" The monitor still beeped steadily, no alarms blaring. Nurses bustled past in the hallway, oblivious. But Aaron refused to relax, pacing back and forth at the foot of the bed, letting out soft, urgent yelps. Trusting his instincts, Adam pressed the call button. Within minutes, a respiratory therapist arrived. She ran a quick check and her face paled. Her breathing tubes partially blocked, she barked over her shoulder. "Get suction ready. Now." Chaos erupted around Lucy's bed. Nurses rushed in with equipment, clearing the blockage before Lucy's oxygen levels could crash. Adam backed against the wall, shaking. Had it not been for Aaron's warning, they might have lost her again, quietly without warning, right there under the hospital's fluorescent lights. When the crisis passed, the lead nurse knelt by Aaron, scratching behind his ears. "You're a miracle worker, you know that?" she whispered. Adam sank into the chair, burying his face in his hands. Gratitude flooded him so fiercely it was almost painful. Lucy's dog, the same one some had tried to dismiss as a disruption at her funeral, had just saved her again. That night, long after the hospital halls fell silent and the last of the TV crews packed up for the evening, Adam sat alone with Lucy. Zane had crashed in the waiting room down the hall, utterly spent. Aaron lay curled at Lucy's side, his breathing slow and steady. Adam reached for Lucy's hand, small, delicate, but warm. "You're still fighting, baby girl," he whispered. "And I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." A light snow fell outside, frosting the hospital windows. Somewhere deep inside himself, Adam allowed the tiniest flicker of belief to bloom. Maybe, just maybe, miracles were real. Maybe tomorrow or the next day Lucy would wake up. Maybe the bond between a little girl and a loyal dog was stronger than death itself. And maybe, just maybe, they were about to defy the impossible one more time. Morning crept into St. Florian's under a blanket of low clouds and a dull gray sky. It was the kind of day that made time itself feel sluggish, each minute dragging longer than the last. But inside Lucy's room, something had shifted. Adam stirred from the rigid vinyl chair where he had spent another sleepless night. His back ached and his eyes burned, but he didn't care. His gaze was locked on Lucy, where tiny changes made his heart pound with cautious hope. Her eyelids fluttered. It wasn't a twitch. It wasn't some involuntary spasm caused by medication or reflex. This time, it was deliberate, a slow, tremulous blink as if she were trying to rise from the depths of a heavy, endless dream. Adam bolted upright, nearly upsetting the chair. "Lucy?" he whispered, leaning close. Aaron immediately sensed the change, springing to his feet, tail wagging so furiously it thumped against the side of the bed. He whined low in his throat, nudging Lucy's arm with his nose. Lucy's fingers twitched, curling weakly toward the German shepherd's snout. Adam fumbled for the call button, slamming it so hard the nurse station responded almost instantly. Moments later, Nurse Felicity and Dr. Fiona Sun rushed in, their eyes widening when they saw Lucy's hand move and her eyelids crack open again. "Lucy, can you hear me, sweetheart?" Dr. Sun asked gently, bending close. Lucy's mouth worked against the tracheostomy tube, her brows furrowing in frustration. She tried to lift her hand again, barely managing to brush her fingers along Aaron's soft fur. Adam felt his heart fracture into a million pieces, each one filled with more emotion than he thought he could bear. Tears streamed down his face as he dropped to his knees beside her bed. "You're here, baby," he whispered. "You're still here." It wasn't coherent speech. It wasn't a miraculous full recovery. But it was more than enough. It was the signal they had been waiting for, proof that Lucy's mind had not been completely lost to the coma. The news spread quickly through the ICU. By that afternoon, Dr. Sun assembled a team of therapists, neurologists, and specialists. They surrounded Lucy's bed, speaking in hopeful, hushed tones about the potential for rehabilitation. Every small step would matter. Every blink, every squeeze of a hand, every flicker of recognition. Zane arrived in time to hear the news, rushing down the hallway like a man chasing redemption. When he burst into Lucy's room and saw her struggling to track movement with her half-lidded gaze, he stopped cold. "Hey kiddo," he said softly, voice rough with emotion. Lucy's head shifted slightly toward the sound. Adam squeezed Zane's shoulder. "She knows you're here." Zane swallowed hard, nodding. He bent down beside her bed, voice low and steady. "You're a fighter, Lucy. Stronger than anyone." Aaron, never far from Lucy's side, rested his big head on the edge of the mattress, as if anchoring her to the living world. His dark eyes remained locked on her face, tracking every slight movement. It became clear over the next few days that Lucy's recovery would be grueling. Speech was difficult. Physical movement was limited. Cognition seemed intact, but even small tasks exhausted her quickly. Still, every inch of progress was celebrated. When she squeezed Adam's hand twice to answer yes to a simple question, he almost collapsed with relief. When she tried and failed to say Aaron's name, only to giggle soundlessly at her own frustration, the room felt flooded with sunlight. Even the nurses couldn't help but smile whenever they entered. Lucy's spirit, though battered, was unmistakably present. Meanwhile, outside the hospital walls, Pine Harbor continued to buzz. The Iron Talons organized another ride, gathering donations for Lucy's ongoing care. Local businesses plastered posters with her picture, a smiling, freckled face with a brave little dog beside her, urging customers to contribute. Reporters still loitered at the hospital's periphery, but after several tense confrontations with the Iron Talons and local police, they learned to keep their distance. Inside, the focus remained on Lucy. But the storm brewing outside, the looming legal battle, the investigation into Dr. Rowan's actions, the insurance fights threatening Lucy's future therapy, could not be ignored forever. One evening, after another grueling round of physical therapy where Lucy managed to sit up with assistance, Adam met Zane in the empty hospital cafeteria. The men sat across from each other, both exhausted, nursing cups of bitter coffee. "They're pushing," Zane said, voice low. "Hospital administration. Insurance. They want to move her to a long-term care facility as soon as they can. Cheaper for them." Adam stared into his coffee, fury simmering beneath the surface. "She needs real rehab. Specialized therapy. Not some warehouse for forgotten kids." "I know," Zane said grimly. "Ava Romero, that malpractice lawyer, says we have grounds to sue. Not just for what they did at the funeral but for trying to cut her loose now." Adam's shoulders sagged. "I don't want Lucy's life to be a court case. I just want her to heal." "You think I wanted any of this?" Zane said quietly. "But sometimes you fight with the weapons you have. And right now that's lawyers. Paperwork. Pressure." Adam rubbed a hand over his face. "We'll do whatever it takes. I'll fight. For her." Zane nodded once, a soldier's nod, simple and solemn. "We all will," he said. That night, back in Lucy's room, Adam sat beside her bed, reading from her favorite book, a battered collection of fairy tales. Aaron dozed at her feet, twitching occasionally in his sleep, as if chasing dreams of running fields and endless loyalty. Lucy stirred when Adam's voice faltered with emotion, her fingers seeking his hand. When he looked into her tired but shining eyes, he realized something deeper than all the battles ahead. No matter how long the road, no matter how many storms waited beyond these walls, Lucy was alive. She was fighting. And so would he. For her. For all of them. For the tiny miracle that a German shepherd's unwavering faith had brought back from the brink of the grave. The first real snowstorm of the year swept into Pine Harbor like a living thing, hammering the hospital windows with icy pellets and coating the world in a blanket of unforgiving white. Inside St. Florian's, the storm was barely noticed. The battle for Lucy's future raged fiercer than any weather outside. Adam stood with his back against the ICU room's window, staring at the swirling storm beyond but seeing none of it. His mind raced with the hospital administrator's latest words. Insurance guidelines. Limited resources. Transfer to long-term care. All bureaucratic language that really meant we're giving up on your daughter before she's even had a chance to heal. Aaron sat alert beside Lucy's bed, ears perked, sensing the tension crackling in the room. Lucy herself lay resting, exhausted from the day's therapy, a soft knit cap covering her head and her favorite blanket tucked up to her chin. Adam knew he couldn't let them move her. St. Florian's had the specialists. The machines. The people who had already fought for her once. A long-term care home would be a death sentence. Slow, silent, and unacceptable. Zane entered the room without knocking, brushing snow off his leather jacket. "They've set a meeting for tomorrow," he said grimly. Hospital board. Administrators. Some big shot from the insurance company. Adam's heart pounded with anger. They're going to decide her fate like she's an inconvenience to be shuffled out the back door. Zane crossed the room and leaned close. His voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. Ava's ready. She's found records, patient histories showing how this hospital cuts corners when they think nobody's watching. Rowan wasn't a fluke, Adam. He was the symptom of a bigger disease. Adam looked at Lucy, then at Aaron, then back to Zane. Then we fight, he said. The next morning dawned bitterly cold, the sun a pale smear behind the thick clouds. In a sterile, windowless conference room tucked deep within the hospital, the battle lines were drawn. At one side of the long table sat hospital administrators, a sea of dark suits and tight faces. On the other sat Adam, Zane, Ava Romero the attorney, and Dr. Fiona Sun, who had insisted on being present to advocate for Lucy's ongoing care. Ava spoke first, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. My client's daughter was nearly buried alive due to negligent medical care, she began, eyes blazing. And now, while she is still fighting for her recovery, you want to move her out of the only facility equipped to handle her complex needs. One of the administrators, a man with a graying mustache and tired eyes, leaned forward. Mr. Mitchell, we sympathize deeply. But this hospital has to prioritize resources for patients with acute needs. Your daughter's condition is stable. Chronic. Adam's fists clenched on the table. Stable doesn't mean she's finished healing, he said, his voice low but shaking with fury. She needs advanced rehab. Specialists. Familiarity. If you move her now, you'll kill her. We are offering a very reputable facility, another suit began. With one part-time neurologist and a 2-star Medicare rating, Ava cut in mercilessly. I've done my homework. The room crackled with tension. At the end of the table, Dr. Sun finally spoke. Lucy Mitchell has made extraordinary progress because of the environment here, she said firmly. Because of continuity of care. Because of Aaron. At the dog's name, Adam felt a surge of emotion. Aaron, who had already defied death to protect Lucy, now faced an invisible enemy more dangerous than any disease, bureaucracy. If you force her out now, Dr. Sun continued, you'll not only endanger her recovery, you'll be liable. The suits conferred in hurried whispers. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the chairman cleared his throat. We will extend her stay, he said grudgingly. Pending monthly evaluations. Adam sagged in relief, barely able to keep from collapsing in his chair. Lucy had won a little more time. But he knew the war wasn't over. Days blurred together as Lucy continued her slow march toward recovery. Each victory was tiny but monumental. A raised hand. A mouthed word. A hint of a smile when Aaron licked her fingers. One night, as Adam read to Lucy from her storybook, her favorite tale about a girl and her loyal dog braving a magical forest, Lucy shifted against her pillows and reached for Aaron herself, fingers trembling but determined. Her hand found his ear and she gave it the gentlest tug. Aaron barked softly in response, tail thudding against the floor. Lucy's lips parted in a soundless laugh. Adam broke down, covering his face with shaking hands. She was coming back. Piece by piece. Fight by fight. Later that night, as the snowstorm outside deepened, Adam sat with Zane in the waiting room, watching the lights of the ICU monitors flicker beyond the glass. You ever wonder why it's dogs? Adam said suddenly, voice rough with exhaustion. Zane raised an eyebrow. Dogs? Adam nodded, staring into the distance. Why it's always dogs that know. That stay. That fight with you even when everyone else gives up. Zane smiled faintly, the lines around his eyes deepening. Because dogs don't know how to quit, he said simply. Not when they love you. The truth of it hit Adam harder than he expected. Lucy had been saved by love. Unfiltered, stubborn, unconditional. The kind of love that leapt onto a coffin and refused to let the living be buried. The kind of love that stayed even when the world walked away. The kind of love that looked like a little girl with fierce eyes and a broken German shepherd who saw her, really saw her, when no one else did. And as long as Lucy kept fighting, they would fight too. Together. No matter how long it took. No matter what storms came next. Because love, real love, never left. Not even when death tried to steal it away. Winter finally began to loosen its grip on Pine Harbor, but inside St. Florian's Hospital, time felt frozen. The snow melted in slow, muddy patches along the streets, and the sea breeze carried the first faint hints of spring. Yet Adam's world remained suspended between hope and fear, every day a battlefield measured in tiny victories. Lucy's therapy sessions intensified. She could now sit upright for longer periods, her once frail body gaining back a hint of strength. Though her speech remained a series of raspy whispers, she made herself understood, especially when calling for Aaron, her constant shadow. The German Shepherd had become a fixture at the hospital. Even the most hardened administrators eventually surrendered to the undeniable evidence. Lucy's vital signs improved whenever Aaron was near. The dog seemed to anticipate her needs before any machine could. Doctors began documenting it officially. Nurses marveled. Families visiting other patients would pause at the doorway, struck by the sight of the little girl and her silent protector. Adam never left her side. Neither did Zane, who had become as much a part of their little family as if he'd always been there. One rainy afternoon, as Adam and Zane sat sharing bad vending machine coffee, Ava Romero burst into the waiting room with a wild glint in her eye. "They're caving," she said, breathless. "The hospital administration. The malpractice insurers. They want to settle," quietly. Adam stared at her, the words barely sinking in. Settle? For enough money to cover Lucy's therapy, medical bills, special schooling if needed? And an apology, she added with a small grim smile. A formal one. Zane leaned back in his chair, folding his arms. "What's the catch?" Ava's smile faded. "You have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. No public statements. No interviews." Adam looked toward the ICU where Lucy slept. The image of her small body, so fiercely fighting for every breath, every movement, every word burned in his mind. "I don't care about public statements," he said at last. "I just want what's best for her." Ava nodded. "Then we move forward." It should have felt like a triumph. Instead, it felt hollow, bittersweet. No amount of money would erase the nights Adam spent thinking he had buried his daughter. No apology would heal the ache of almost losing her to negligence. But this settlement would buy her the future she deserved. Therapy. Specialized care. Tools to rebuild the life that had nearly been taken from her. He signed. The legal storm that had raged around them for months finally broke apart like a dying hurricane. The news vans packed up and left. Pine Harbor turned its attention to other gossip. And within the hospital's hushed corridors, a fragile peace settled. Lucy made her biggest leap yet just days after the papers were signed. It was late in the evening. The rain had stopped and a cool breeze drifted in through a cracked window. Adam sat reading softly beside Lucy's bed while Aaron snoozed at her feet. Lucy stirred, her brow furrowing in concentration. Slowly, painstakingly, she lifted her right arm, still tremoring slightly, and reached toward her father. "Daddy," she whispered. The sound was broken, airy from the lingering effects of her tracheostomy, but it was unmistakable. Adam dropped the book, tears flooding his vision. He clasped her hand in both of his. "I'm here, baby," he choked out. "I'm right here." Zane, entering the room with 2 cups of coffee, froze in the doorway, watching in awe as Lucy mouthed more words. "Aaron," she said next, louder this time, her voice scraping but clear. The German Shepherd's ears perked up instantly. He bounded onto the bed with surprising gentleness, pressing his nose against Lucy's cheek. Lucy giggled, a small breathy sound that broke the last of the tension coiled inside Adam's chest. For the first time in months, Adam laughed too, a deep, cathartic sound that echoed through the sterile hospital room. Zane blinked rapidly, pretending to study the coffee cups as he brushed a hand across his eyes. The following days were a whirlwind of cautious celebration. Lucy's therapy schedule doubled. Speech therapists, occupational therapists, and physical therapists all rotated through her room. Each hour brought new milestones. Sitting up unaided for a full minute, mouthing simple sentences, squeezing a stress ball to build hand strength. And always Aaron was there. His presence didn't just comfort Lucy, it fueled her progress. Therapists marveled at how much further Lucy would push herself when Aaron was part of the goal. "Touch Aaron's nose," they would say, and Lucy would lift her hand higher than ever before. "Call Aaron by name," and Lucy would force out a raspy but determined whisper. In those precious moments, the hospital room transformed from a battlefield to a sanctuary. A place where miracles didn't wear halos or wings, but had floppy ears and soft fur. Outside the hospital, change brewed as well. With the legal settlement finalized, Adam and Zane turned their attention toward something bigger. A way to honor what had happened, to help others who might face similar battles. They spoke with Dr. Sun and some of the therapy staff. Plans began to form. A non-profit organization that would connect rescue dogs with children suffering from chronic illnesses, particularly epilepsy and seizure disorders. Lucy's Light, they decided to call it. A way to shine hope where others had given up. Meanwhile, Zane's old biker friends, the Iron Talons, organized a Ride for Hope fundraiser. They roared down Main Street one sunny Saturday, a convoy of chrome and leather and thunder, raising money for service dog training programs. Pine Harbor, once the town that had gossiped and speculated, now rallied behind Lucy's recovery. And inside St. Florian's, in a hospital bed surrounded by balloons and handmade cards from strangers, Lucy took another unsteady step toward the life she was meant to live. She wasn't out of the woods. Recovery would be long, grueling, and uncertain. But she was alive. Fighting. Laughing. Loving. And most importantly, she was home. Spring exploded into Pine Harbor in a riot of colors. Yellow daffodils lined the sidewalks, cherry blossoms painted the streets in pink and white, and the sharp salt air from the coast carried promises of new beginnings. It was the kind of season Lucy would have loved, and now, against all odds, she was alive to see it. After months in the hospital, Lucy finally came home. Neighbors gathered on the front lawn, balloons tied to the fence, hand-painted signs declaring, "Welcome home, Lucy," fluttering in the breeze. Adam wheeled her carefully up the new access ramp built by volunteers. Every cautious turn of the wheelchair wheels, every smile on Lucy's fragile face, felt like a small piece of a miracle stitched back into place. Aaron walked proudly beside her, wearing a special service dog vest and a blue bandana around his neck that read, "Hero." Lucy's eyes widened when she saw the house. Familiar but different, just like her world had become. She struggled, her tiny hands gripping the armrests. Adam knelt beside her. "You want to try?" he asked gently. Lucy nodded. With a tremulous push, she moved the wheelchair forward herself just a few feet, but enough. The small crowd burst into applause, laughter and tears mingling in the warm spring air. Lucy beamed, the brightest, bravest smile Adam had ever seen on her face. Inside, the house had been transformed. Safety rails, therapy mats, and speech therapy charts lined the walls. A special dog bed sat beside Lucy's new therapy chair, already claimed by Aaron, who thumped his tail against it with contentment. That first evening back, Adam wheeled Lucy out to the small backyard where the willow trees swayed. The sunset turned the sky into a painting of fire and gold. Lucy, wrapped in a soft blanket, reached for Adam's hand. "Daddy," she whispered, still struggling with her voice but stronger every day. "Thank you." Adam bent down, tears blurring his vision, and pressed a kiss to her forehead. "No," he whispered. "Thank you, baby girl. Thank you for staying." Behind them, Zane leaned against the porch railing, watching the scene with quiet pride. His old motorcycle jacket hung from his frame, worn but strong, much like him. "You did good, brother," Zane said softly. Adam shook his head, smiling. "We did good." And they had. Together, father, uncle, daughter, and one fiercely loyal dog, they had clawed their way back from the edge of unthinkable loss. The months that followed were hard, but filled with a kind of beautiful, stubborn joy. Lucy's physical therapy was grueling. Her speech therapist became a fixture in their lives. There were setbacks, small seizures that scared them all, moments when exhaustion overwhelmed her, but there were victories too. Her first steps using a walker across the living room floor. Her first whispered full sentence, "I love you, Daddy." Her first laugh, real and loud, when Aaron tried to steal a stuffed animal off her bed. Every milestone was celebrated like winning the lottery. The town of Pine Harbor, once divided over the scandal of Lucy's near burial, rallied around her. Fundraisers helped cover therapy costs. Families dropped off meals. Children wrote letters and drew pictures of Lucy and Aaron saving the world. At the center of it all was the bond that had refused to be broken. Aaron remained Lucy's shadow, her protector, her constant. Wherever she went, he was there, head pressed against her knee, tail sweeping like a metronome of hope. Adam often caught himself just standing in the doorway watching them, afraid that if he blinked, the moment would disappear like a fragile dream. But it didn't. This was real. Hard won. And theirs to keep. One day in early summer, they held a small ceremony at the town park. Adam, Zane, and a group of volunteers unveiled the first plaque for Lucy's Light Foundation, their nonprofit pairing rescue dogs with children battling chronic illnesses. The plaque read, "In honor of Lucy Mitchell and Aaron, whose bond taught us that love, loyalty, and hope can conquer even the darkest night." The Iron Talons rolled into town again, engines rumbling, parking in neat lines as a sign of solidarity. Parents with children in wheelchairs and walkers gathered on the grassy lawn. Aaron, wearing his blue bandana, sat proudly at Lucy's feet as she cut the ribbon with trembling but determined hands. Zane lifted her briefly so she could speak into the microphone. Lucy took a shaky breath, Adam's hand on her back. "Thank you," she whispered to the crowd, voice raspy but clear. "Don't give up. Even when it's hard." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Tears streamed down faces. Adam closed his eyes, overwhelmed with gratitude. Zane clapped him on the shoulder. "You didn't just save her," Zane said. "You're saving a lot of others now too." Adam couldn't speak. His heart was too full. That evening, after the celebration ended, Adam and Zane sat together in the backyard as twilight painted the sky purple and blue. Lucy dozed beside them in a hammock, Aaron curled protectively at her side. The air buzzed with the sound of cicadas and the distant hum of the ocean. "You think she'll remember all of this?" Zane asked quietly. Adam watched Lucy's peaceful face, the faint rise and fall of her breathing. "Maybe not all the bad parts," Adam said. "But the love? The people who stayed? She'll remember that." Zane nodded, satisfied. The stars blinked awake overhead, each one a silent testament to survival, to second chances, to the kind of fierce, stubborn hope that refused to die. And there, under the vast sky, with the scent of honeysuckle and the warm, steady breath of a sleeping dog at their feet, Adam finally understood something he had once been too afraid to believe. Sometimes miracles didn't come with blinding lights or angelic choirs. Sometimes they came with muddy paws, broken voices, and a love so tenacious it clawed life back from the very jaws of death. Lucy was living proof. And they had only just begun. In the quiet loyalty of a German shepherd, the fierce love of a father, and the hard-won redemption of a forgotten uncle, we find a lesson that resonates far beyond Pine Harbor. Sometimes the bravest battles are fought in hospital rooms, the greatest heroes walk on four legs, and the fiercest victories are whispered with trembling hands. Never underestimate the power of refusing to give up, not just on life but on love itself. If Lucy's story touched you, remember, there's always hope, even in the darkest moments. Subscribe to True Echo for more powerful real-life inspired stories that will move your heart and stir your soul. Leave a comment sharing what part of Lucy and Aaron's journey stayed with you most. And don't forget to share this story with someone who needs a reminder that miracles can, and do, happen.